There's a new crazy Avengers Endgame theory out there about a hidden 7th Infinity Stone. Surprisingly, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this could be a thing. Stay up to date about the nerdy things that you care about. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. You made it through another week. Congratulations. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than what we normally do on the Nerdy News Rundown, and I want to shout out Mark Chandler. Mark brought this up on one of the recent Nerdy News Rundown videos, and a lot of people started to talk about this in the comment section. It was the first time that I had actually heard about this theory. I took a deep dive on it, and I wanted to talk about the theory in today's video. So shout out to Mark, and shout out to everybody that's active in the comment section of the Den of Nerds videos. I'm always peeping down there. So the basic idea with this theory is that there's a 7th Infinity Stone called the Ego Stone, which was in the comic books. This stone houses the consciousness of a being called Nemesis, who was once made up of all of the different Infinity Stones until she basically got sick of being alive and separated into the 6 Infinity Stones we know and the Ego Stone, which is hidden in a different dimension. The stone would obviously be super powerful and potentially help the Avengers defeat Thanos and the Gauntlet. Now, as I've said, a lot of people are talking about this theory right now. Cosmic Wonder just covered this. Warstu did a video on this, I guess about 5 months ago. He just hit me up on Twitter about it. There was also a really big Reddit theory by user Truth of Alekius, in which he talked about how the secret to Captain Marvel's powers might lie in the Ego Stone and that this could be a huge MacGuffin for Endgame. And I was really curious, like, why is this so popular? Why is such an outlandish theory gaining so much traction in the fan base? And the more I researched on it, the more I figured it out. It actually falls in line with a lot of the things that we've been talking about for the past couple of months. Number one, we're pretty damn sure that the quantum realm plays an incredibly important role in Avengers Endgame, and in the comic books, the Ego Stone was housed in a hidden dimension. It would stand to reason that if we're going into the quantum realm and finding something hidden to help the Avengers out in fighting Thanos, the Ego Stone could be that thing. Another interesting fact is that there's a lot of Black Knight rumors when it comes to Avengers Endgame. MCU Cosmic has been talking a lot about this. They think Black Knight might be in the film. Black Knight has a lot of ties to the quantum realm, and in the comic books that talk about the Ego Stone, Black Knight is in charge of the team that goes to find them. There's also a lot of talk about this greater threat that might show up in Avengers Endgame. You know how I don't like that theory. However, in the comic books, if the Ego Stone comes into contact with the other Infinity Stones, Nemesis would be reborn. And technically, Nemesis would be a super powerful villain, a greater threat, and potentially Thanos and the Avengers would have to team up to face down Nemesis. There is also a lot of rumors talking about a massive CGI character that Doctor Strange will have a big scene with in Endgame. This is something that was in the OG plot leak, and it's something that people continuously bring up when trying to weigh and measure new theories. And so maybe the big CGI character is Nemesis. This all falls in a line. And so with regards to the Truth of Alekius theory from Reddit, and just in general, the basic theory with the Ego Stone, it would have to do with Captain Marvel being tied to the Ego Stone, that being set up in her movie, then she coming to Earth after getting the call from Nick Fury, explaining the stone to the Avengers. They go into the quantum realm, they get the stone, they bring it out to fight Thanos, and then Nemesis is created. There's a greater threat, and they all have to fight Nemesis. It's a really cool theory. I wanted to give it the time of day. I get why people are into it, but unfortunately, I'm 100% certain that it will not happen in the next movie. And the main reason for this is because the Ego Stone comes from a weird comic book event that was published in Malibu Comics. You didn't hear that incorrectly. This was a story not actually in Marvel Comics. You see, Malibu Comics was this small imprint that was bought up by Marvel in 1994. They had a book called Ultra Force, and in an attempt to get Ultra Force buzzing and to have Marvel fans buy into Malibu Comics, they switched the team up, put Black Knight in charge of Ultra Force, and then created this concept of the Ego Stone and them looking for Nemesis. And this was all just to build hype for Malibu Comics. And it didn't work. Nobody really read that story. Infinity War and Endgame are adapting the Infinity Gauntlet comic book story, which is not only a Marvel comic book story, but it is considered maybe the best comic book story of all time. And you see, for that reason and that reason alone, you can pretty much rule out the Ego Stone or the 7th Infinity Stone. Like I said, that all comes from a really deep cut comic book run that really went nowhere and wasn't popular. And the movies are adapting one of the biggest comic book stories of all time. I don't want to be a wet blanket, and I don't want to be known as that guy on YouTube that just poops on everybody's theories. But I mean, think about it, guys. Infinity Gauntlet is a huge deal. Kevin Feige has talked about this. He's talked about how important it is that they adapt this for a new audience and pay homage to what a great story Infinity Gauntlet was. There's no way the MCU is going to spend 10 years building up the MacGuffins for that big, huge comic book story, and then in the second part of the two-parter that adapts it, introduce a new MacGuffin that's a seventh stone that does all of this crazy stuff. It just doesn't make sense. The safer bet is to say that the second part of Infinity War, or Avengers Endgame, will adapt parts of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. I mean, the parts where Thanos is just standing there looking out at the galaxy after the snap, and all of the heroes show up to try to fight him. The cosmic entities showing up to try and fight him. Him perhaps fighting Eternity, leaving his body, and then someone picking up the gauntlet. All of that stuff and all of the theories that talk about that stuff are way more likely, because it's very important that they adapt and pay proper homage to Jim Sterling's Thanos and Infinity Gauntlet. And so that's the news out there, guys. This theory is really blowing up, so I wanted to talk about it, give it a fair shake, explain why people are super into it, but also talk about why personally I think there's no way this is gonna happen. So let me know what you think about this. Did I miss something? Is it possible that they will do this and they'll pull really, really deep cut, kind of niche comic book stuff? Whatever you're thinking about that, let me know in the comment section below. Now let's check that nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, how did Thanos get the soul gem or the soul stone in the comic book? Here's a little hint. He did not huck Gamora off a cliff. It was something different. How did he get it in the comics? Answer that question in the comment section below. This weekend is, of course, the Super Bowl. We should be getting a ton of cool trailers and a lot of news dropping this weekend, so make sure you check out the show next week where we'll be breaking all of that down. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.